Okay, we are now live on the YouTube. I'm going to copy this link. Minimize that window there. Go to special event. And Alien Invasion. By the way, we are going on channel 1 starting next week on Alpha Geek Radio.
Woohoo!
Yeah, that's really cool. I got to find out who's going to be leading into us, because that could be a coup for us. If somebody like a big show, like a Daily Tech News show or something, is right before us, that could be really good for us.
Yeah.
All right. So, are you guys ready?
Sure.
All right. I'm gonna put us live on Alpha Geek, and then I'm gonna play the intro. So, if you can, turn down your microphones, and let's do this thing. Here we go. All right.
You are listening to Alpha Geek Radio.
The following is a production of Galactic Netcasts.
We interrupt this program to give you a bulletin just received from one of our naval units at sea. A large object traveling at supersonic speed is headed over the North Atlantic toward the east coast of the United States.
This earth of yours will be reduced to a burned-out cinder.
This could be the beginning of the end for the human race. Human beings cower before the onslaught of these unearthly enemies.
It's Thursday, November something. I don't know. I got an October date on this document. It's
November 5th.
November 5th. Welcome.
Remember the 5th of November?
That should have helped me remember, but I didn't.
Remember something.
Yeah, it's November 5th, and welcome to the Alien Invasion number 163, a production of Galactic Netcasts. I'm Dave Nelson, and right there is Brad Ludwig and Anessa Moyens. What's up, guys?
Not much, yo.
I missed you guys last week.
We missed you too. What was up?
I was sick.
Aw, are you feeling better?
I'm on the road to recovery. I'm still coughing, so if all of a sudden I have to turn my mic off and I'm throwing up in the corner, or what looks like I'm throwing up and I'm really just coughing my head off, that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
It's some kind of weird cold / cough / flu thing, and it's going around. I've talked to many victims of it so far this year, and it's towards the end of the life cycle, according to what I've heard from other people.
Woohoo!
Yeah, so reasons.
Light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and I was right when I first got it. I had a audition scheduled for a part-time radio station gig, so I had to cancel that.
Oh no!
Yeah, it sucked, but I got it rescheduled for Monday, and hopefully I will be done, completely finished with the coughing and the hacking and all that stuff.
That's cool though that they were fine with rescheduling, because some people are like, "Well, sorry, too bad."
Yeah, they seem like they want to work with me, so that's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. This is the podcast where we do talk about extraterrestrials and their appearances in film, TV, video games, comic books, science, and in real life. And I have to ask you, Brad, you were on the Else Nerds. What else is on this week? I heard.
Yes.
Yeah. And you had a great description of this podcast. Do you remember what it was?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I have a tendency to say like really brilliant stuff and then I totally forget what it was.
It was really good, and I wish I would have like made a note of it, like written it down someplace, because it was good, and I wanted to use it on the podcast. But hey, stupid head brain of mine not remembering to write it down.
And to clarify, I don't have like a huge ego. It's one of those things where somebody goes, "Hey, you said that thing and it was really good," and I'm like, okay. I'll take your word for it.
We didn't think that you had a big ego, Brad.
I have a huge ego. Devastating. I need another house just
It's crowded in here.
Yeah. Watch out. When Brad gets on a, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that frickin' guy.
All right. Hey, this show that we're doing right now, the podcast, the Alien podcast, is divided into 3 sections: the news, the sightings, and our picks for the week. If you want to follow us on Twitter, the Facebook, the Google+, you can do that. Just go to our website, gncasts.com, and click on the appropriate links. And then on Thursdays when we record live, you can find out where you can click to watch us live or watch us later at youtube.com/galacticnetcasts, or subscribe to the audio podcast by going to our website, gncasts.com. Click on subscribe, or you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and all other locations where you get podcasts, and it's absolutely free. So let's get into it and start it with the news.
In the news,
All right, so you guys know that I usually cover entertainment alien stuff, right?
Really?
Yeah.
When did that start?
That's kind of my beat, right? We all have our own little beat on this podcast. Like,
It's true.
Vanessa's got the weird stuff. We're going to talk about alien love coming up, and I'm sure Brad has some kind of science story, right? Yep.
Maybe.
Yep. Solar storms. So mine is entertainment. That's the beat that I cover. And I found one small story, so I wanted to kind of cushion it with another story. So I've got 2 this week.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's crazy, eh? Neil Blomkamp's Alien movie is on hold until at least Prometheus 2. Is right. Less than a year after it was announced, and after his concept art made everybody swoon, Neil Blomkamp's Alien has been put on indefinite pause. The news came out from a tweet by Blomkamp this week. Actually, I think it was last week. It's not a giant shock since Ridley Scott announced that Prometheus 2 would be called Alien Paradise Lost, even though he said at almost the same time that the Prometheus movies wouldn't connect with the Alien franchise until they got to Alien or Prometheus 4, the 4th movie in that sequence of movies. So that sucks. I really wanted to see what Neil Blomkamp could do with the Alien franchise. What do you?
Well, you will just eventually.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
One of us may be dead by that time.
It's a fact.
You never know.
That is very true.
So do you think Ridley Scott's got too much power? I mean, look at him. Look what happened. He swept in because Blomkamp had his idea for the Alien movie first, right? Before Ridley Scott said, I'm going to do this Prometheus 2, which kind of will connect with the Alien franchise eventually. So he swept in and said, I'm going to do this thing, and your thing's not going to happen for a while.
I probably think that's more the studio than Ridley Scott.
Yeah. I think maybe they just kind of want to wait to see how one kind of works out before they start on the other to make sure that everything does mesh up by the time they get to Prometheus 4.
That and confusion.
Yeah. Yeah, there would be a lot of confusion because not everyone pays attention to what's going on, myself included.
Okay.
What?
But why couldn't they do both? Why couldn't they do like, because they're not really, I mean, they're tangentially, am I saying that word right?
Tangentially?
Yeah. They're loosely related, right? They're in the same universe. So why couldn't like Prometheus 2 happen and then Blomkamp comes in and does his Alien movie?
Because one is essentially a prequel. That's the Prometheus stuff. And Blomkamp stuff is an extension of the stuff that happens way in the future. So if you are going to be basically jumping back and forth in time, I could see them balking at the probable expense that they would have to incur in marketing to go, hey, this is the stuff that happens in the future. Hey, this is the film that happens in the past. So I think that they're probably more the marketing, and the executives are very leery to get into that whole thing of confusing the people that would actually watch the movies.
Well, what about Star Wars? They're doing episode 7, and then they're going back in time to before episode 4. Huh?
They're going.
I
What?
got no. They're doing the Rogue One, right? And that takes place before episode 4, and that's going to be released after between episode 7 and 8.
Are they being done by the same studio?
Yeah, they're doing the regular Star Wars movies, episode 7, 8, and 9, and between those, they're doing the anthology films or whatever the hell they're calling them. And
But they're not really lining up, are they?
well, they're in the same universe.
Yeah,
Like-
but what I'm saying is they're not having them plan on like a big like merge
What do you?
intersection.
Well, no, I mean, but the Blomkamp doing the Alien films and Ridley Scott doing the Prometheus films is kind of the same thing. It's in the same universe, and they're not necessarily going to line up.
Maybe the studios want to wait and see how it goes with Star Wars before they even try it on their own.
Star Wars is far more of a money-making established. Yeah,
It's a much bigger franchise.
yeah,
Okay, all right.
and I think that they're probably just trying to protect the eggs that are in the smaller basket to make sure that they can make as much money as possible. That's just merely speculation on my part.
Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
Okay. Hey, I bet you Dave is going to cough.
Sorry. It probably sounds way worse than that.
Probably.
So
Wait, hang on. Poor Dave. He's been very sick lately.
I know what it's like to have that awful cough. And I wouldn't wish it upon anyone.
Remember last winter when we were both so horribly sick?
I do. And like every other person in the office was out sick.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
Plague swept through.
Take your vitamins,
Midwest.
folks.
Yeah. Get your flu shot too.
And no, the flu shot does not make you
does
sick.
not make you sick. It is not a live virus that they give you, so it does not make you sick.
What are you guys talking about?
The flu shot and how it doesn't make you sick.
Oh, okay.
That's our PSA while you were away.
Mhm.
And in the Alien universe, if you get a flu shot, that turns into a xenomorph and it bursts out of your chest. That's how that.
Woohoo! I was just thinking about the X-Files and how the smallpox shots were their way of like
Oh, yeah.
cataloging
everybody.
people.
Yeah, good point.
So maybe that's their way of cataloging us, which I mean, they could just, look online.
The New World Order. Matt and I talked about that this week on Weird World Weekly. Maybe it's the New World Order. They're
Maybe.
tracking
It could be.
All right, let's move on from Alien and Prometheus to Metroid. You guys ever play Metroid back in the day?
I did.
Nope.
Can you describe Metroid for us, Anessa, if you remember?
Oh man, it's been forever. I remember you were Samus, which is a lady bounty hunter. She's kind of a badass, and you're going on this. I think it's the planet is Metroid.
Okay.
I don't remember. Anyway, so you're basically like going after these beings, and it's a, what do they call it? A side runner, kind of like Mario, how you're just running from like left to right.
Okay. All right.
At least that's how it was when I played it. I haven't played it in recent years. Although I have played Metroid Prime Pinball because I love pinball games. So that's like the most recent interaction that I've had in the pinball universe is she is now a pinball.
Well, the reason I bring this up is somebody made a Metroid short film.
Cool.
Yeah.
And people are more than welcome to correct me on my memory because, like I said, it's been forever.
Jessica Chobot.
So anyway, short
She's
story,
from-
short
she's-
film.
She's from The Nerdist, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she stars as your character that you just mentioned, the
Samus?
Samus Aran, who responds to a distress beacon and sets out to explore an uninhabited alien planet. The short draws more heavily on the claustrophobic sci-fi thrillers of the 70s and 80s than it does on the action-oriented blockbusters of today. And this is what the article from dorkshelf.com is describing it as. I love that website, dorkshelf.com. They say that there's definitely a healthy dose of alien, and the chilling tone is perfect for a game about a lone hero isolated on a desolate and mysterious alien world. The Sky Calls is a fan film with no official connection to Nintendo, so it's highly unlikely that it will lead to anything more substantial. But you never know. They may find that someday and go, that looks really good. Who's the filmmakers who directed this? Why don't you work on our feature film, our Metroid feature film? The crazier things have happened. Look at Pixels, right?
Yep, that's true.
Oh, God.
Haven't seen it.
Don't want to see it.
It would be one of those things if I had cable and I was flipping through the channels and it happened to be on, I might stop and watch it for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And then I would go do something else, maybe, depending on how those few minutes went.
I'm guessing that you may enjoy this short film about Metroid more than you would Pixels. I'm just
Probably.
the wild shot in the dark guess.
Probably.
I think it's about 7 minutes long, and you can check it out. We'll have the link in the show notes. You can check it out for yourselves. It's called Metroid: The Sky Calls. Looks pretty good too for a low budget fan film. I enjoyed it. Alien.
Ooh.
I mean, Anessa.
Hi, my name is Alien, and I'm here to talk about sex.
I was reading your title. I don't know.
I kind of figured.
So go ahead. Tell us about alien love.
Okay, so what happens when a little green man loves a little green woman and decides to have a little green baby? No one knows, because humans have not yet caught beings from outer space in the act of physical affection, nor have we really caught aliens from space. I realize some people might argue that point, but for the sake of the story, we've not caught aliens. So anyway, but now a top evolutionary biologist, Dr. Sarah Otto, has decided to shed some light on how aliens might make love. So it was, a couple episodes back where we talked about a woman who claimed reptilian aliens regularly raped her at their base on the dark side of the moon. Do we remember that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, they're saying that aliens would probably find it very difficult to get jiggy with humans because our bits and bobs are likely to be totally different from their bits and bobs.
Bits and bobs.
Bits and bobs. As well as this, it's unclear whether the familiar gender binary of female and male would be replicated in an alien species. Alien eroticism would probably be totally different, having developed along its own evolutionary lines. Dr. Otto said the two-gender approach was unlikely to be found on another planet because it doesn't always exist on Earth, which is very true. Which brings us to the next point. Aliens could be hermaphrodites, which means they can essentially have sex with themselves. But this would depend on what sort of beastie E.T. would turn out to be. This could be useful because it means E.T. wouldn't have to find a partner and then talk them into bed. Organisms can move and find other mates, are more likely to have separate genders, she said. Those that are stationary tend to have male and female organs on the same individual. Intriguingly, Dr. Otto suggested that a being that can't move wouldn't necessarily be any less intelligent than one that can run about, raising the prospect that alien life forms could look more like trees than humans. Just watch out for those wandering branches. Which, for some reason, makes me think of the tree ants from Lord of the Rings. I don't know.
Oh, the giant trees that walk?
Legit.
Yep.
Trees? Yeah.
Yep. Next, we have Attack of the Clones. In Star Wars, the famous stormtroopers were said to be exact copies, or clones of the bounty hunter Jango Fett. But in a real galaxy far, far away, aliens are unlikely to clone themselves because reproducing your exact genetic makeup could leave a species at risk for being wiped out by one single disease. If a creature cloned itself, the species would not be able to benefit from the combinations and mutations which occur when men and women merge their genetic code during reproduction. Clonal species don't tend to do well in the long term, Dr. Otto added. Love for everyone. Alien orgies. Not every species on our own planet relies on sex, which takes place exclusively between two genders. Rather than male and female, some species have categories like A, B, C, D, and E, Dr. Otto added. But despite the fact they may have multiple mating types, it's only two that tend to participate in mating. This means that aliens would unlikely get involved in orgies because when it comes to producing the next generation, more than two parents is certainly a crowd. Then you've got those seeking some pleasure. It is often said that humans are unique because we enjoy having sex. Of course, every species is hardwired to reproduce, otherwise they wouldn't last very long. It's no surprise that evolution has linked sex to pleasure centers of our brain, Dr. Otto said. This would mean that aliens would likely feel an urge to get down and dirty, whether they enjoyed it or not. Sound familiar? And finally, Brave New World. In his famous novel, Aldous Huxley imagined a future where sex was purely for fun and babies were produced in factories. We asked Otto if this was unlikely to be the way aliens produced their offspring. I sure hope not, she replied. In factories and manufacturing industries, you are trying to do things the same way over and over again. Evolution doesn't work that way. Just like earthly creatures, aliens are likely to have benefited from the flukes caused by combining their genes over the courses of many millions of generations. Evolution stops if replication is done perfectly, Dr. Otto concluded.
Well, you could still do it in the factory, just custom order, right? Same one.
I suppose you could change things up, but
take your DNA, take a piece of your skin and a piece of your mate's skin, and take the DNA and make your baby in the factory. Do it that way.
I would like to not make a baby in a factory, though it would cut back on labor pains, I suppose.
Come on, the workforce demands this, Anessa. Well, people need to work, right? Let's make some baby factories.
But then we'd have to change the Presidents of the United States song from peaches to babies. Babies come from a can. They were put there by a man in a factory downtown. Sorry.
No, it's good. Do a musical interlude every few minutes here on the Alien Invasion podcast. That's good.
So, the factory thing kind of goes back to the clones, though. Mm-hmm. And you might end up with whoever is in charge of these baby factories saying, "This is the perfect template," and then some other alien beings like, "I'm gonna come up with this disease and it's gonna wipe out everyone that came from that template," I suppose.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cloning and factory manufactured babies are probably not the best of ideas.
I think the self-love, the making yourself pregnant is the most logical step in any species' evolution, right? Because you don't need the other person. You can just, because there is species of animal on this planet that make themselves pregnant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are plenty of hermaphroditic species. I'm not sure how diverse their genetic makeup goes or how the whole evolution thing works with them, because that could potentially be another issue. with having
Kind of a dead end.
yeah. And then we fall back to the clones. So if something bad were to happen that could potentially wipe out that particular species, then they're kind of screwed.
Okay. Well, what else is
So
what else is? You got the clones. You got the self-love.
well, I mean, I suppose there's alien orgies, depending
Oh,
on how
It's fun.
they get pregnant, I suppose, how they reproduce. Perhaps it would be, rather than requiring one mate to get pregnant, you would require like 2 sets of DNA, and that would definitely diversify the gene pool if you
Yeah.
had or somehow required more than one donor.
That would make Maury Povich more interesting.
Although, I read an article the other day about this guy who turned out not to be his kid's father because he was a chimera, and it was actually like the father of his baby was his dead twin that he absorbed in the womb.
Ugh.
And it's one of those things that really makes you think, because you're like, well, if that happens, and there have been other cases similar to it, what if there are or have been, say, rapists in prison or murderers or whoever that have left DNA evidence behind? Like they've gotten their DNA evidence from the sperm left behind. And then they take a swab of the mouth, and if it's the same scenario, the sperm is going to be different. Like the DNA in the sperm is going to be different than the DNA from the swab of the mouth. I mean, has anyone been let go of that because they lucked out and they were a chimera?
What? Okay. Can you explain what comes out?
Okay. So we've got this we'll just go with the rapist, for example. And he does his thing, leaves behind some DNA, and they take this enough for them to analyze and get a print or whatever they call it off of, right?
Can
Okay.
I interrupt for a second? Whenever I hear anybody say the rapist, I think of that Jeopardy sketch from Saturday Night Live with
The therapist, the rapist. I gotcha.
Okay, go ahead.
So you've got the situation where you've collected this DNA sample based off of the semen left behind. Now, whenever they find a suspect, if you have DNA evidence, you're going to end up pulling DNA from them, but I don't think it's the same source. They're not like, here's a magazine, go ejaculate.
Yeah.
They're not going to pull the same DNA source, so they're going to swab the suspect's mouth for their DNA. But if it happens to be a scenario where the semen is a different genetic makeup than what's in the mouth, like, has anyone been let go because of that?
Oh yeah. How?
I mean, would they be able? I mean, they would be able to tell, like, okay, these people are related, but it's not this person.
How common is that?
I don't think it would be very common, but I'm just curious if anything like that ever happened, or they're like, oh, this is wrong, we're just gonna let them go, it's fine.
Somebody should do some research.
So I'm curious about that. That was one of the questions that popped in my head once I heard that. But I mean, you would have some common genetic markers because, they were twins, granted fraternal twins, but siblings tend to have at least some common genes, don't they?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah. Anyway, totally not alien related anymore. But
I love the conversations that we end up getting into that branch off into something entirely different. That's cool.
so,
All right.
yeah, alien love, woo!
Well, I guess someday we'll learn the truth. We'll learn exactly how it's done on SETI Alpha 5. SETI Alpha 5.
This is SETI Alpha 5.
All right, Brad. What do you got? Let's wrap up the news with your the big announcement today from NASA.
Yes. So they've been doing studies on the atmosphere of Mars with the MAVEN spacecraft, which is doing lower orbit runs to determine what gases are in the atmosphere and take a lot of readings. I guess, the first question people might ask is, why is this in the alien invasion? Is this technically about aliens? Well, the thing to think about, and we're going to get into the specifics here, is Mars had water. And at a certain point, it lost its magnetic field. And then it slowly started to lose its atmospheric protection from solar winds, and the water on the planet slowly started to disappear. So, could life have existed before that? It would have had protection. So, anyways, we'll get on with the story here. The air on Mars, what there is of it, is leaking away about a half a pound a second, sputtering into space. Wow. Scientists announced on Thursday, which was today. The planet's early atmosphere is thought to have been as thick or thicker than Earth's today, and even over the 4.5 billion year history of the solar system, that slow leak would not explain how it atrophied to its current wisps. But new readings from NASA's MAVEN spacecraft show that when Mars is hit by a solar storm, the ferocious bombardment of particles from the sun strips away the upper atmosphere much more quickly. That could help explain the disappearance of the atmosphere. The sun during its youth was more unsettled, with many more solar storm eruptions, and it shone brighter in the ultraviolet wavelengths that also help knock atoms out of Mars' atmosphere. What this tells us is loss through space has been an important process. The answer to what happened to the Mars atmosphere is key to understanding how Mars might have once been a warm, habitable planet with lakes and maybe an ocean covering the northern hemisphere. When the air disappeared, liquid water largely disappeared too. So they are reporting these findings in 4 scientific papers, one being the Journal of Science, and more than 40 additional papers by the MAVEN team are going to appear in the Journal of Geophysical Research Letters.
Okay, I had to go for a second.
Mm-hmm.
What was the main cause of Mars losing its atmosphere?
We haven't quite gotten there yet, but the one thing that it doesn't have is it doesn't have a magnetic field around the planet. There's no... What protects us from solar storms is having the magnetic field around the planet.
Okay.
Once you lose that protection, the charged particles that come from the sun, especially the higher energy stuff in the ultraviolet range, that is mostly deflected by the electromagnetic fields around the Earth. But if that were to go away, we would end up having the same issues as Mars. Okay. That our upper atmosphere would start to erode, and then we would start to lose water, and we would end up sharing the same fate as Mars' condition.
So
the proposed theory.
The mystery is what happened to the Martian magnetic field.
That's the next question that they're going to work on. So and I stripped a lot of stuff out of here, and there's a lot of interesting things. This article came from the New York Times. And again, the article is called Not Self-Love. There we go. Solar storm strip air from Mars, NASA says. So there you go.
Hot off the presses.
Hot off the press.
Yeah, I was wondering what the big announcement was going to be today, because they've been teasing it for a while now.
Yeah, they have. So it's good that they finally released it and stopped making everybody wait on the edge of their seats, because anytime they say, hey, we've got an announcement, everybody's just like, oh, I wonder what it is. What is it? Mm-hmm. What is it? Why do you do this to me?
They found Marvin.
They found something.
It's been an interesting year for Mars, and The next step that NASA needs to do is they need to start producing teaser trailers for how films
On a world.
now they release teasers for the actual trailers themselves. So NASA needs to start doing that.
Just put out teasers.
Well, they had that cool video to explain how what's the Mars, the rover, the big one that's on Curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Remember that, how they showed the whatever minutes of terror or whatever, how they showed how the craft would hit in the atmosphere, and then the rockets would start up, and that would slow the descent, and then the parachute would deploy, and that would slow it down some more.
Mm-hmm.
Do more of that, NASA.
Well, to be honest, they do put out a lot of like little videos and stuff.
Yeah, they do.
To try to help explain things, and I don't know if they've done any to like for teasers, but even on Vine, like they have little snippets of like, hey, here's this really cool thing that we've discovered, and here's a little animation, and here's where you can find out more information. So they're kind of like teasers because they're only 6 seconds long.
Yeah. Okay.
On the Vine.
Good on them. They embrace social media.
They really do, and I think especially with the help of oh my gosh, I just forgot his name. Mike
Rowe.
Birbiglia.
No, Mike Madonna.
Mike Massimino.
Yeah. Where does Mike Madonna come? Isn't he like a hockey player or wasn't he a hockey player for the Dallas Stars? Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Mike Massimino really helped put NASA out there more so on the social media. Because I mean they've always had kind of a social media presence with APOD and they're at NASA on Twitter and their website and whatnot. But I think once Massimino embraced social media out in space, people were like, "Oh, cool."
Mm-hmm.
And then other astronauts just kind of like took it and ran with it, and especially Chris Hadfield.
Yeah, did that.
Was like, I'm going to be awesome on the social medias. I'm sure that's probably not what he said, but that's what it turned out to be. Yeah. And so that really helped pull in more focus and more interest in NASA and the space program. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that all of it pays off and people will be more willing to fund future NASA projects.
Yeah.
Which people often say, what's the point of spending all this money to go out into space to learn about Mars or to learn about the moon or to learn about wherever? But to really learn more about Earth, you kind of have to take a look at its surrounding environment to see like, oh, hey, what happened this long ago? Here on Earth, we have a very limited view. It's kind of like you're hanging out in a house on the street. You've never been outside and you're looking at all the neighbors' houses, but you don't know what's going on. You just know that they exist. They're there. Not a clue what's going on in any of those houses or how this neighborhood came to be. And it's not until you start to go and knock on people's doors and meet your neighbors and stuff that you really start to learn more about the neighborhood that you're residing in. And that's kind of an important thing to know.
Cool.
So anyway.
Words of wisdom, Anessa. Words of wisdom. Okay, what we want you to do is let us know how you feel about the stories that we talked about tonight. And that is called feedback. In fact, we've got some feedback a little bit later on to tell you about. But
cool.
How you can give us feedback is by emailing galacticnetcasts@gmail.com, galacticnetcasts@gmail.com. You can also call our voicemail number, which is area code 805-328-3966, 805-328-3966. All right, let's slide into sightings.
Please identify the craft you witnessed.
A black, triangular, three-dimensional shape,
huge, just flying, hovering in it.
Shaped like almost like between an egg and like a teardrop.
Two long cylinder objects flying over me.
It had a dome. I could see the occupants in it.
It appeared to be rotating, and it was circular in disc shape, and it hovered for maybe about 5 minutes.
All right, this is the Sightings segment where we talk about a famous UFO sighting in history. And this time we're going all the way back to August 1952, and this is called the Scoutmaster UFO Incident. Scoutmaster D.S. Sonny Desvergers of West Palm Beach, Florida, was driving 3 scouts home on the night in question. He turned off the coastal highway and down an inland blacktop to go where one of the boys lived. After traveling about 10 miles inland, he noticed a bright light. At first, he passed by it, but then stopped, turned around to investigate. Divergers stopped the car and got out to proceed to the scene of the bright lights. The Scoutmaster headed toward the thick brush, and about 50 yards into the thicket, he noticed a terrible odor. As he reached an opening in the brush, he glanced up into the clear night sky, to get his bearings. But the many stars he had only seen a few moments ago were gone. Something else was blocking the view. A large oval object, which was hovering about 30 feet above him. As he slowly moved away, he shined his flashlight toward the object. He could now make out the concave bottom of a smooth, round craft with a dome on top. He continued to slowly move back from the object until he heard the sound of a large metal door closing. He now found himself surrounded by a red mist, and then, what do you think happened?
Aliens.
He fell asleep.
He lost consciousness. The boys, you were close, Brad. The boys left the car and ran down the road to a house. Finding a farmer, they told him what they had seen. The farmer quickly called the state police, who soon arrived at the scene. The Vergers met them at the scene. He must have woken up. And officers found his flashlights still burning. They were burning. They also noticed that the grass was flattened near the flashlight. Arriving at police headquarters, authorities noticed that Diverger's hands, arm, face, and cap were all burned. An Air Force surgeon, they called in Project Blue Book, by the way. An Air Force surgeon did an examination on Divergers and determined that his wounds were indicative of mild sunburn. There were singed hairs, burns on his face and arms, and also his nostrils showed signs of being burned by a flash heat source. At the scene of the event, one of the investigators could find nothing to invalidate the Scoutmaster's account. I think the guy that I have his name here, Ruppelt, was an Air Force officer, part of Project Blue Book. So
interesting.
Yeah, I like how this incident is written from this website that I got it from, UFOcasebook.com. They make it almost sound like a story. It kind of is. It kind of is.
Well, I guess any sighting has a story to it.
Yeah.
Like how did the person get there?
Yep.
What brought them to that particular point in time where they were able to witness this object in the sky that they could not identify?
You have to describe it in a way that intrigues people, right?
Yeah, aside from it was bright and round.
Yeah. Which unfortunately sometimes that is the only thing that people see. In an object. It's bright and round. Well, there's no detail. Well, this person had a lot of detail. It was oval, had a dome on top. There was smells. There were sensations. There was a door that supposedly opened and closed. I mean, come on. There's a lot going on here.
Yep.
So anyways, that was the Scoutmaster case from 1952. Let's move on. Let's move on to picks, shall we? These are things that we have read, listened to, played. Anything that we've taken in as entertainment related to aliens over the last week. And Anessa, you're up first.
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I ended up watching a movie called Teenagers from Outer Space.
Yay!
And it ends up being a movie about this alien race who's trying to find a planet for their livestock, essentially, that looks like lobsters.
Wait a second. What year was this?
Good question. Let me look that up.
1950 something. It's got to be.
1959.
Yes.
So just barely. And anyway, so they land on Earth, and one of the aliens, I think it was the alien named Thor, got out of the flying saucer and shot this dog that was barking at it. And another alien character named Derek at some point discovers that the dog had a tag and was like, hey, there's like a civilized race on here, because, you know, primitive beings wouldn't be able to create etchings on this metal trinket. And the other aliens were like, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about. How dare you go against us? We're going to take you back home so you can be punished and or put to death. And then Derek takes off, leaves. And so they end up leaving behind their, I forget what they're called, Zorgons, maybe? The cattle. They leave one of them behind just to see how it fares on Earth, and then they leave and they want to go get the alien's father. Because the thing that Derek had against the other aliens is that he's read a book that has put these ideas in his head about love and family bonds and stuff. And the race that he's from is the supreme race. And they don't believe in love and family. And the vast majority of the race don't know who their parental units are. And so you've got one of the mean alien chasing after the good alien, and it just kind of goes back and forth and having to adapt to the planet Earth and whatnot. It wasn't the greatest movie ever, but I didn't hate it. Some of the acting was pretty cheesy, as you would expect from a 1950s sci-fi film. I saw a lot of references to where they tried to make it sound like, you know, Nazis, essentially. You've got the supreme race, we're better than all the others, we will come out on top, sort of thing. But apparently they won't grow their cattle on their own land, so cobblers to them. But yeah, so you've got like this adventure and trying like this cat and mouse game of one alien chasing the other on Earth and whatnot. It's one that, again, like a lot of the movies I recommend, you'd want to watch with friends so you can poke fun at it. Have a good laugh. But overall, I actually enjoyed the film for the most part, despite its cheesy acting. There was a scene where a gentleman came out of the house. He's like, oh, what's going on? Like, just cheesy yawn and like right into words. Because most people, when you yawn, it takes you a bit to quit yawning and start talking. And that really wasn't the case. It was just cheesy little things like that. But I've definitely seen worse acting. So I think they did fairly well for what they were going for.
Yeah, between you and Brad, you guys have watched plenty of 1950s really bad old.
We do. And Brad only got to see the tail end of the movie, like the last 20 minutes today before the podcast, because I hadn't had a chance to finish watching it. And so he was already poking fun at the last 20 minutes that that we were watching. But yeah, it was much more enjoyable with company. And there was something else that I kind of noticed that I was surprised about, but now I don't remember what it is. So,
all right.
But the fact that the monsters were like somebody holding up a lobster and shaking it.
oh, those were wonderful. It was you would have the shadow of the monster, and it would be a lobster in front of like a spotlight or something. So it's just the shadow on the ground, and someone going, "Ah!" It was wonderful.
No, that's what the films in this day and age are missing. You know, I think we need to go back to terrible like
cheesy sci-fi films, low budget.
Yeah,
those are fun. Those are fun to watch because
forget your Final Cut, forget your fancy video editing. Let's just do some practical effects that are just outrageously weird and crazy and
yeah, it just, to me that makes it much more enjoyable because they tried to get creative with something, even if it is just a lobster in front of a flashlight. That's fine. They at least tried to do something on the budget that they had, and they made it work for the most part. Yeah. So,
okay. Teenagers from Outer Space.
Yes.
That's your pick.
Yep.
Okay. Good enough. Let's move on to my pick. I've been doing that weird laugh lately. I don't know why. So my pick is Supergirl. And Brad, I don't know how caught up you are. Have you watched?
I have not watched any.
Oh, Brad Ludwig. What kind of DC fan are you?
I'm just not a fan of CBS.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of difficult to watch stuff on CBS.
But it's Greg Berlanti. It's Greg Berlanti.
And I would be more than willing to give it a shot because it's Greg Berlanti, but it's on CBS. Okay. And they don't play ball with Hulu, and we cut the cord, and we time shift. So
we're gonna have words later on the Sci-Fi Geeks Club about that Star Trek story. By the way, I heard, and we're gonna have a differing in opinion. Just wait. So you guys listening, make sure you subscribe to that the Sci-Fi Geeks Club so you can hear Brad and I fight it out over.
Yeah,
but
guy.
Okay, did you say the F word?
I said that frickin' guy.
Oh, okay. So my pick is Supergirl. The first 2 episodes. The first one is Fight or Flight, and the second one is Stronger Together. The first one is the pilot episode, which was leaked online earlier this year, way back in I want to say late spring, early summer. That was leaked online.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people got a chance to see it back then, but it premiered just a couple weeks ago. It's the first episode of Supergirl. Supergirl's powers are put to the test when one of Superman's most formidable enemies, Reactron, shows up in National City to take her down. In the meantime, Kat makes plans to run an expose on Supergirl. Now, Kat is the publisher of this magazine where Kara Danvers, Supergirl, works at, along with she has a really good relationship with one of her coworkers. I think he's like another reporter or somebody else that works on the floor with her, and he knows her secret. They also introduced Jimmy Olsen or James Olsen. He comes in as like a person that was just hired by this Kat, the publisher. Of course, we all know who Jimmy Olsen is. He goes by James Olsen. And it's just a neat introduction to Supergirl. And the person that they have playing Supergirl is like perfect. She plays that character, and they really do a good job. The Berlanti-verse, the Berlanti Productions, they do a really good job of casting the right people, and I think they casted the perfect girl to play Supergirl. I forget her name. She used to be, I've been told by my stepdaughter, she used to be on Glee, and there's actually a lot of...
And Jeb Bush thinks she's hot.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did read that. Yeah, he's a creeper. a little bit. The first episode is an introduction to Supergirl, how she got to Earth. Superman does make an appearance, sort of. They show him how he helped her when she first arrived and kind of brought her to the Danvers. She grew up with the family called the Danvers. And her sister, she has a pretty good close relationship with her adopted sister, who actually works for a government agency that protects the Earth against alien threat. There's that part of the story, and then there's the other part that happens in National City, where Kara works for the newspaper, and there's Jimmy Olsen, and there's the other guy. So she's fighting crime in the city, but then she goes out and she ends up working for this government agency, fighting these aliens who were brought to Earth for the same reason that she was. They were all in the shadows, not the shadow zone. The what's it called?
Phantom Zone.
Phantom Zone. Kara, she was in a she was shot because she was in Krypton, or she was in like a ship that was launched from Krypton after it blew up, and then there was a problem with the ship, and the ship was going to go down or going to explode, so they launched her into space as well. No, I forget exactly how it goes, but she ended up in the Phantom Zone along with this ship full of criminals, all these like really, really bad alien criminals, and they both got knocked out of the zone and resumed their course, or she resumed her course to Earth, and they kind of followed in her wake. So not only did Earth get Supergirl, but they also got this ship full of these really, really bad aliens. So that's the first episode. Then the second episode, they show her training more with the military, and she gets a bad reputation because she causes an oil spill at the shipyard after she's trying to save the ship from blowing up, and then she has to redeem herself. And Jimmy Olsen and this other guy are helping her kind of fight do all these nice things in the city to kind of up her rep a little bit. And then at the end of the episode, she ends up doing an interview with Kat, the publisher of this magazine. So far, I really like it. You can tell it's on a bigger network than the CW because the special effects are really impressive. I mean, The Flash and Arrow have really good special effects, but I think they have a bigger budget on CBS. And it really
I would say that this is their flagship show for this season. So they're
well, that and Legends of Tomorrow is probably going to be up there as well. Of course, there's less episodes of that show, so I think that they can spend more on each episode. All right, that's my pick. Supergirl. Brad, what's yours?
Well, my pick is The Awesomes, which is a Netflix original show, and this is their third season, and they just wrapped it up. It is a Seth Meyers and Lauren Michaels production, and because it's a Netflix animated show, the seasons are much shorter. But you've got a lot of the voices and people from, you got Bill Hader, you've got Rashida Jones. So you got a number. Amy Poehler does a voice she was highlighted a bit more in season 2, but she's made a couple of appearances here in season 3. The whole premise of the show is that Mr. Awesome, who founded the Awesomes, retires, and the Awesomes team it breaks up. Without Mr. Awesome there, they don't see a point. So they all decide to do their own individual crime-fighting thing. But Mr. Awesome's son, Jeremy, thinks that there should continue to be an Awesomes team. So he finds a group of heroes, and they're delightfully I don't know how else to describe it but delightfully dysfunctional. You've got Frantic, who is the speedster, but he's like chronic ADD, and he is a stereotypical hillbilly. So he's, like going to the Cracker Barrel would be like a big night out for him and stuff like that. They have a character who has mother issues. So he's a very powerful individual who mentally can conjure shapes and animated things, not unlike Green Lantern, but every shape that he makes has his mother's face on it, and it talks and has a conversation with him, but it's like his own internal dialogue that he's put in for his mother. So it's just like really powerful guy, but he's definitely got some issues, and it goes on with the rest of the team. And they were introduced in the first season. And now at the end of the third season, the whole premise is that Mr. Awesome turns evil, and he decides to go to Earth and destroy the Earth. And he does something at the end, which is truly terrible. He goes to NASA and uses their connection to dial up an alien race to come to the planet. And when he wraps up the phone call, he's like, yeah, things aren't going to go too well in a year. And I'm not going to entirely wreck the ending, but at the very end, the aliens show up, and that's your cliffhanger for the next season. Okay.
All right. I didn't know anything about this series until I heard you and Gregor talking about it on What Else Is On this week.
Sure. It's a very fun show. To me, it's just, and I'm such a comic book nerd anyway, and this really kind of fills a spot of, we watch a lot of serious superhero shows, and this is totally not that at all. Mm-hmm. And seeing how these people bumble into solutions to problems, it is very funny. So,
okay, cool, great recommendation, Brad. Thank you. So it's the Awesomes. We had Supergirl, and we had Teenagers from Outer Space. We'll put the links to those in the show notes if you want to indulge in them as well. All right, feedback time. We got a little bit here.
Cool.
Terry, through our website, gncasts.com, sent us a message. That's, if you want to avoid just going to your email, just go to the website and find the contact link and write us an email through that way. That's what Terry did. So he wrote, I thoroughly enjoy the podcast. Thank you for the information and entertainment. A few months ago, I was conducting research on the existence of aliens. Not that I have been a skeptic. It was merely for a college research paper. The breaking point was finding a lot of conspiracy information or misinformation on separate alien races. The specific one I'm referring to is the stipulation of the reptilian race living under the city of Los Angeles. And he says, yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then he says the F word, which I'm not going to say. I should have done my report on why people need to lie about alien affairs. Just kidding, he says. Anyway, I was wondering why people say that the proof is coming or we need to stop polluting the planet. I think keeping an open mind about the thought of aliens is a good thing. Also, trying to do our part to keep the planet clean is a major concern. But why is that the main reason why these men and women that are allegedly contacted, their message they will pass on to the public? Wait a second. I didn't read that right. Why these men and women that are allegedly contacted, their message they will pass on? Okay, yeah, he wrote it kind of weirdly. Personally,
that's fine.
Okay, personally, I want to be contacted so my weary mind can rest. That never seems like it's the case, right? What are your thoughts on MUFON, Paul Hellyer, and Jim Sparks? I don't know who Jim Sparks is. Paul Hellyer sounds really familiar.
Well, okay, so starting with the first one, Mr. Hellier was the former defense minister in Canada.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've talked about in the past who urged people to other countries to come out with their secrets regarding alien life and UFOs and whatnot. Jim Sparks, he is he's written a book that I know, and some people are saying it's just shenanigans. He wants like a movie deal.
Okay.
Just the way that it's written, I'm guessing.
I think we talked about him on a previous episode.
Yeah, I want to say that we've talked about him too, and it's been a while. But I do recall both of those people. And Hellier, I think, is a really interesting character, just given his position. Because you also have now I can't think of his name. We talk about him like every other week. Chris Pope.
Okay.
Oh, that freaking guy.
Who, was working for the Defense Department in the UK at some point, and that was his thing was aliens. And I think it's really interesting that you've got two people that have some sort of government affiliation coming out and talking about the possibility of extraterrestrials, or saying that there are extraterrestrials out there. And I just think it's really interesting, their positions and their opinions regarding alien life. And I don't know, I would assume as a defense minister, you get a lot of classified stuff. So I would like to think that what he's saying has some merit to it.
Mm-hmm.
So and then there's MUFON, which I think is actually pretty cool, because they do try to keep track of all of the various UFO sightings. They have a database that people can go into and search. And if I recall correctly, it'll say whether or not at the very least, it'll say if it's been determined to be a hoax.
Yeah.
So there is some level of effort in trying to collect and go through all this data and determine whether or not what they're getting in is legit or not.
And if they think something is like worth investigating further, they'll actually go to the scene and do more investigating.
Yes. And that I really dig about MUFON.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Sparks. I don't really have like at least right now. Maybe I did whenever we talked about him in the past. And people would have to refresh my memory as to what I said. But right now I don't really have much of an opinion on Jim Sparks. But there are, if you do a quick Google search on him, there are plenty of people that have an opinion about him.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them are not positive. A lot of them call out holes in his storytelling. There are some that I think I had mentioned before think that he's just trying to get like a movie deal by publishing this book as fact as opposed to fiction. And I could see that. I mean, I've not read the book, but I could see how someone would, if they were really inclined to, could create this work, say that it's real, and hope that it gets picked up because it's such an extraordinary account of what has happened or what may not have happened. But so yeah, I don't really have much of an opinion on Jim Sparks just because I haven't really done a whole lot of research, but there are plenty of people out there that say he's up to shenanigans.
All right. Well, thanks, Terry, for that feedback. Appreciate that.
He got feedback from me.
Yeah, no, that's good enough. That's fine.
I don't know if people have their own opinions about these people and these things, but
we could do the feedback. So if anybody listening has strong opinions on any of the stuff that Terry brought up, you can send that to galacticnetcasts@gmail.com or call our voicemail number 805-328-3966, which this person did. Hang on.
Hey, guys.
That's all he said.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Hello.
That's the extent of what he said. That's his feedback. So
And,
hey,
and you know, thank you for taking the time to say hey.
yeah.
We really appreciate it because it's more than we sometimes get.
And that's staying on the soundboard because you never know when we might need something like that. So, all right. That's going to do it for this episode of the Alien Invasion. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on iTunes and Stitcher. If you do either of those, please leave us 5 stars on iTunes and that thumbs up on Stitcher. We have the subscription link on our website, gncasts.com. Also, join the Galactic Collective, a way to support our network, pay for things like hosting and maybe some advertising in the future. We'll see about that. And all the links to this podcast and the other podcasts on the Galactic Netcasts network is available or are available at gncasts.com. Before we get out of here, final thoughts. Brad, you're first.
Did we mention that we saw The Martian?
No.
Yeah, we finally saw it the other day.
Yes.
All right.
Well, like a week ago.
What'd you think?
Spectacular.
Yeah. It's not exactly the book, but I
think they did a really good job of adapting it to movie.
Yeah, I
mean, I know things had to get cut out and they had to change Watney from typing everything to doing video logs because, you know, people are not going to sit there and watch someone type for 2 hours.
No.
And GoPro got their share.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say GoPro, definitely.
They got their money's worth.
Yeah.
Cool.
For reals.
All right. Anessa, do you have final thought?
No.
Outside of that?
Not really. I still never remembered what last week's or the last show's final thought was supposed to be.
Oh,
Because I had a final thought and then someone said something and that final thought left and that final thought is still gone.
Floating out there somewhere. We'll find it someday.
Yes.
Okay, thanks for listening, everybody. That's going to do it for this Alien Invasion, a production of Galactic Netcasts. We will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Okay, bye.